My family and I had gone boating on tubing on the Apple River.
Do you recall where you put in on the Apple River?
Where we put in?
Yeah,
The river's edge is where we parked and we got in there.
All right. Who were you with, generally speaking?
My husband, my 3 children that are teenagers, a group of friends with us, and my husband's cousin.
Were you folks having drinks?
Yes,
Did you specifically have some alcoholic drinks?
I did.
Do you remember how many?
I think it was 2 to 3. I had 2 White Claws, and I think I had a sip of Shelley's Cayman Jacks.
Do you think you were impaired?
Buzzed, not drunk.
All right. At some point, as you're floating down the river, did you become involved with an incident where some folks have been injured?
Yes.
Tell us how that started.
We had grouped our tubes together. We had tied them together, and so I ended up kind of on the back end, and I was floating down the river backwards. And my husband said, "Those people are having a good time, or they're having quite a party," something along those lines. And I turned my head to the right, and I could see one person laying down on the river's edge and another person further down, and people were, what I had thought was laughing, but turned into screaming, yelling.
What did you do when you saw?
I knew somebody was hurt, and so I jumped off the raft and ran across the river. Well, it was so slow, I was trying to run fast, but the water was too thick, so then I ended up kind of falling forward and army crawling across to him, and when I got up, there was a blonde boy.
Did you know who that boy was? Did you find out later who it was?
Yes.
Who was it?
Isaac?
Did you approach Isaac?
I did.
Where was he located by the time you got to him?
He was on the bank, kind of with his right arm in the lake, or in the river. There was a kind of a copse of trees right before where he was laying, and kind of up into the edge there, and then a little further down there was somebody else sitting. I thought was sitting.
By somebody else, do you mean somebody else?
Like another somebody hurt.
All right. Did you focus your attention on Isaac?
I did.
When you arrived to where Isaac was, did your nurse training kick in?
Yes. So he was lying on his back. His eyes were open but not blinking. He was not breathing. So I started chest compressions right away and continued that for a long time.
Did you make a primary assessment of his wound?
I saw that there was a large cut. At first I thought he had been impaled on the set of roots and branches that were hanging down just prior to that. But then I looked, and it was a slash mark, not an impale thing. It was a long and thin and clean cut.
Where was it located on his body?
On his left chest, upper chest, kind of his ribs.
All right. So what?
I asked, I was doing compressions, and people were screaming, and it was making me lose count. So I think I yelled out to somebody, "Shut up" or "Stop screaming," so that I could count. There were other people around. I asked for somebody to get me anything that I could use as a chest seal, so Ziploc bag, anything to put over that wound. I didn't want any water or anything getting in there, but I looked down at Isaac, and there was some vomit coming from his mouth at some point. So I asked the kid up front to turn his head, which he did, and the kid splashed some water, which got in his eyes, and I said, "Don't splash water in his face anymore." And it just continued forever. It felt like forever that we did compressions. I kept asking, "Where's the rig? Why isn't it here yet?"
By rig, what do you mean?
Ambulance.
Do you have an idea now, as you sit here, how long you performed chest compressions on Isaac?
I said 45 minutes because I think I thought that's what it was, but somebody corrected me later that it wasn't. It felt like forever. I mean, we were going and going round after round. Other people were performing compressions. We were singing Baby Shark to keep people on the rhythm.
Were you taking turns giving him?
Yeah. And at some point, when somebody had taken over a round of compressions for me, I got up and went to check, walked just a few steps further down the river to check the other victim, but it looked to me like they were up and speaking and conscious, so I went back to Isaac because he was not.
Do you have experience dealing with trauma cases?
Yes.
At the hospital where you work, are you involved in trauma care?
I'm primarily a med-surg nurse, but I do float down to the emergency room and involved in code situations.
What's a med-surg nurse?
Med-surg, it's a medical surgical floor, so typically we have post-op patients, anybody from pancreatitis to just a little bit of everything.
Eventually, did law enforcement and EMTs arrive?
Yes,
Were you still with Isaac at that point?
yes,
Was he taken off the river?
yes.
Did you see any of the altercation prior to your giving care to Isaac?
I did not,
Have you had any other involvement in this case?
no.
I think you said that you were tubing with your family, is that right?
Correct,
Okay, and your husband was with you, is that right?
correct.
And your group, or you and your husband and your children, your husband brought a knife, didn't he?
Correct.
Okay, and can you tell us what was that for?
We bring paracord with us when we go tubing, so if we don't bring paracord, we'll use the twine at the river's edge, and we pull our tubes together to carry our coolers, our food, just kind of generally keep the group together because it's a bigger group when we go.
Okay,
And he uses the knife to cut that paracord. Apologies.
that's okay. And do you remember, or can you describe the knife that your husband had?
It was a flip one, where you flip it open and it locks into place, and then you move the lever and it relocks.
Okay.
And it had a clip on it.
If I said to you it's kind of like a pocket knife that is closed, and then you can take the blade and you can open and lock the blade, is that fair?
Correct.
And only answer this if you know. Your husband followed you after you jumped off your tube to run over to see what was going on or to render aid, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know whether or not your husband pulled out his knife?
I don't.
Have you talked to your husband about the case or about the incident?
Previous, but we were asked not to speak about it later, so we didn't. But we've talked about it off and on over the years prior to this.
Okay. Do you know that your husband's knife was lost?
I did after.
Okay.
I found out after that it had been lost.
Do you know, well, I'll ask it to you this way. His knife was lost near the incident, right?
I don't know at what point it was lost.
Okay.
He is, I don't know.
Okay. Do you, your statement talks about that your husband picked up a snorkel. Did you see that?
I saw him pick it up, yes.
Okay. When he picked it up, did you see a confrontation happen then?
When he picked it up?
Or shortly thereafter? When I say confrontation, did you see people starting to yell or confront your husband about picking that up?
No.
No? Okay. Did you see your husband give that snorkel to the police?
No, he picked it up out of the river after Isaac was going, and it was just like a clear white plastic mask. And then I don't know what he did with it afterwards. I don't know if he dropped it. I don't know if he gave it to somebody.